So my career started at Snyder Police Department, and I was patrol officer there for 4 years. In 1998, I was employed with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Through my career with DPS, I 4 years as a highway patrolman, and then I made motor vehicle theft service. I was an investigator for approximately 5-6 years there with the auto theft, and then made Texas Rangers in 2011.
So you started as a patrol officer in Snyder?
That's correct.
And what did those duties include?
The typical patrol, answer calls, motorist assist, family disturbance, DWIs, things like that.
And so were you called on to make arrests like all patrol officers?
Yes, sir.
And what was your original training? When did you first go to the police academy?
Back in 1994.
1994.
94.
Mr. Turner, can you turn on your microphone?
Thank you. So in 1994, you went to the police academy. You were with the Snyder Police, and then you transferred over. Is that correct?
Well, I applied when I was hired by Texas Department of Public Safety in 1998.
What year was that?
1998.
And that's when you worked at what position?
So after graduating the academy, I was assigned back to Scurry County, Snyder, Texas.
And what did you do there?
As a highway patrolman, typical highway patrol duties, patrol, arrest, crash investigations, things of that nature.
Were you trained or given special training on investigating crashes
Yes,
and crime scenes in general?
that's correct. Yes, sir.
When did that happen?
Basic crime scene stuff during troop school, or even after graduating and coming out, you had to go back for your crash investigation training. And then after making Ranger, of course, we're all sent through a 3-week crime scene school.
So all Rangers have 3 weeks of crime school?
Correct.
On May 24th, 2022, where were you assigned?
I was assigned in Wilson County, Floresville, Texas.
And where is that?
It's about 37 miles south of San Antonio.
And on that day, did you get a call for duty?
Yes, sir, I did.
Would you explain that to us?
As being a part of the crime scene team with the Rangers, we were activated to respond to Uvalde to the Robb Elementary School.
When did you arrive to Robb Elementary School?
It was around 5:30 that afternoon, I believe.
That same day, the first day.
Correct.
And what were your duties at Robb Elementary?
Upon arrival, we met with our crime scene team, team leader, Brent Barina, and we as a group were briefed on details of what had occurred prior to us arriving, and we were assigned our duties from that point.
What duties were you assigned?
Basically to that day begin to assist with identifying and removing bodies from 111 and 112.
So that was the first duty of the Rangers, was to identify the people that were victimized in this case.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And was that for the purpose of notifying parents?
That's correct.
And how long did that take?
That was a long process for that evening into the night.
Excuse me?
It was a long process through the evening into the night, that night.
And how were you able to make those identifications?
Usually by either clothing or what they were wearing, or by the class roster that was within the classroom.
And after identifying the bodies, what did you do next?
We gathered up and we coordinated a plan for the next day. We released from our duties that day and we went back the next day.
So on the 25th, you were assigned a new duty,
That's correct.
and what were your duty assignments given to you on the 25th?
On the 25th, myself and Ranger Veronica Gideon was assigned to identify and mark cartridge casings that were in the hallways of the school.
At Robb Elementary.
That's correct.
So were there a number of teams, crime scene investigation teams that were assigned separate duties that day?
Yes, sir.
And your team got the hallway?
That's correct.
Was there a team assigned to 111,
Yes.
112,
Yes.
the truck,
Correct.
and the west? Did y'all get assistance from the FBI on the searching of the west side casings?
Yes.
And how were you able to, when you identified the casings, did you mark them?
Yes, we marked them with a blue tent, crime scene tent marker, and on the tent had in black tape or had numeric numbers.
So as y'all used tents, you deliberately used different colors?
We did, or something to this magnitude of a crime scene, yes, to separate the evidence of where it was located.
So if you had a picture of a blue 4, that may be different from a picture of a tent with a yellow 4 or an orange 4.
That's correct.
And so the color that you were assigned to use in the hallway was what color?
We used blue in the hallway.
And tell us what steps you took in processing the hallway.
We basically started at the door and worked our way through the hall, through the path, based on the information that we were given where things took place.
And did your crime scene search, did that include specifically the hallway and nothing inside or outside of the hallway?
That's correct.
Neither room 111 or 112?
Correct.
And then what were the steps in collecting the casings?
So once we marked all the evidence, of course it was photographed, and then once it was ready to be collected, we would collect those items by the tent numbers in order, and we would place them in a bag and then seal them up.
Thank you. And did you photograph the location of these casings before you picked them up?
Yes, we did.
Showing you, Stacy, Exhibit 262 through 316, and I'll ask you, Ranger, did you have a chance to review these photographs before coming here today?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us, just to flip through quickly, are they fair and accurate representations of your work in the hallway at Robb Elementary?
Yes, sir, they are.
State Officers Exhibits 262 through 316, tender and unfitting things. Your real closure.
Yes, sir.
As we discuss these exhibits, you may have to point out something specifically in this lane.
Yes, sir.
Keep you from having to stand in front of somebody as you. Ranger Snyder, starting with Exhibit 262. Can you tell us the location and what we're looking at in State's Exhibit 262?
Basically, these are the blue tint markers that was mentioned earlier with the numbers on them.
Would you speak up, please? Your voice is away from us, and I'm having a hard time hearing it.
Those are the two blue tint markers, which I mentioned earlier. And this is the hallway near the boys' restroom.
Okay. Is this from the east looking directly west?
Correct.
And before we move in specifically, has there been information or items that were removed before this photograph was taken? By that I mean items of medical relief that was provided.
Correct.
Okay. Could you tell us just in general terms what has been removed before this photograph was taken?
I mean, obviously, you can tell by looking at this picture that the medical intervention and stuff that had previously been done before we had got there and arrived and started marking the evidence.
And did that appear to you to be a triage area?
Correct.
And so all the evidence of triage has been removed, is that correct?
Yes.
And so now Exhibit 263, can you tell us what 263 is?
So it's the same view, it's just zoomed in, because when we take photographs of our evidence that we are collecting, we give an overshot view at the beginning to give the jury and other people that weren't there a view of what we saw, and then we zoom in just to a medium zoom, and then we zoom in to a close-up. And this is a close-up shot.
Okay. And as to State's Exhibit 1, did you have any information that a shot was fired in the east hallway?
Yes.
You did have information that in the east hallway, I'm not talking about the north to south, east to the west.
No, sir. No, sir.
And yet a casing is there?
Correct.
Does the triage area have any indication as to how that casing got there?
I mean, it's obvious that where we located these items that are marked and that we collect, by the signs that you see on the floor, these shell casings could have been dragged or moved or kicked or anything during the medical intervention or the chaos that was occurring.
Okay. So these casings are just indications of where you observed them?
Where we observed them and marked them at the time we collected them, yes.
And after a casing is fired and shot, can the casing be moved before you get a chance to do your job?
Correct, yes, sir.
And was there traffic in Robb Elementary that day
Yes, sir.
before you got to do your job the next day?
Yes, sir.
And some of that traffic was the triage that you were talking about?
Correct.
State's Exhibit 264.
This is item number 2. It'll be 2 magazines of .308.
And what does 308 mean?
It's the caliber of the ammunition that's loaded within the magazine.
And is this caliber of ammunition, is that consistent with law enforcement ammunition as opposed to the gunman's ammunition?
Correct.
Exhibit 265. Is this now the hallway that moves north to south as opposed to the one that was east to west?
Yes.
And are there markers indicated there?
Yes, sir. There are.
Would you point those out for the jury?
Number 3, number 4, and I believe that's going to be number 5.
Exhibit 266.
It would be item or tent marker number 3, indicating a fired cartridge case.
Thank you. And 267, does that show the locations of 4 and 5?
Yes, sir.
Exhibit 268.
There'll be a close-up view of item number 4, fired cartridge casing.
And does that cartridge casing indicate that there are indentions that are inconsistent with just an ejection port or an ejection action by a rifle?
Yes.
And would you show the jury where those are?
See the indention right here towards the end, as if it's been stepped on or something of that nature.
Thank you. And you're away from the microphone, but you said it appeared to you as if it had been stepped on or something like that.
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 269.
That'll be tent marker number 5.
And that's just to keep up, to show the jury that we recovered each one of these, even though each one was not necessarily a casing. Is that correct?
That's correct. This item here is a body cam that had fallen off.
Okay. There's by body camera, is that commonly used by law enforcement?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 270.
That's a close-up view of item number 5 of the body camera.
Exhibit 271.
It's just an overshot view of the hallway.
And does it show kind of a grouping of tents in that exhibit?
That's correct.
And would you show the jury where that grouping is?
This will be a grouping here that we marked and identified, and then of course, diagonal from that area is another separate grouping.
And in photographing, do you start from a faraway view, giving us an idea where things are, and then close in on it?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Showing you then Exhibit 272. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
It'd be the one grouping that I pointed out first that was to the left. Items 9, 10, 11, 12, up through 22, it looks like.
And Exhibit 273. Does that show that we're looking at rooms 105 and 106?
Yes, sir.
And are there just a couple of casings there, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what are those identification markers?
Number 6 and number 7.
And where is classroom 106 and 107 in comparison to rooms 111 and 112?
I believe they were directly across, if I'm not mistaken.
Directly across the hall?
Yes.
Thank you. State's Exhibit 274.
Item number 6, and as opposed to a fired shell casing, this is a unfired shell case or cartridge case.
And by looking at Exhibit 6, can you tell if that came from a pistol or a rifle?
From a handgun.
From a handgun?
Yes.
As opposed to a rifle?
Correct.
Thank you. Exhibit 275.
Be item number 7.
And 276.
It's a close-up shot of item number 7, fired cartridge case.
And the condition of item 7.
It does have that indention. Right here, it looks like there's been some damage done to it right here towards the end.
And that is damage not from the firing of the weapon, but from another source?
Correct, presumed, yes.
Exhibit 277.
Item number 8.
And are we still then across the hall from 211 and 212?
Yes, sir.
278.
It's a close-up photograph of item number 8 being a fired cartridge case.
Exhibit 279.
Again, that's just an overshot, zoomed-out view of the two separate groupings that we saw earlier.
And to the left of the photograph, which classrooms are those?
111, 112.
And 280, does that start to show the marker numbers and start to be able to see the casings?
That's correct.
9 through about 22, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you have a yellow tint there. Why do you have a yellow tint as opposed to the blue tints?
If I recall correctly, I'm going to say that was marking probably some kind of print or something, impression left in the blood.
So it was not a casing for sure.
No, sir.
State's Exhibit 281.
It's item number 9, showing a fired cartridge case.
282.
Item number 10, again, a fired cartridge case.
Exhibit 283.
Number 11 will be it's a 21-round magazine with 20 unfired cartridges.
And do you recognize the nature of those cartridges and magazine?
Was believed to be law enforcement.
And why do you believe it to be law enforcement?
The type of ammo, I believe that was in it, if I remember correctly.
It's handgun ammo as opposed to rifle ammo, is that correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 284.
That's a fired cartridge case from a handgun.
From a handgun
From a handgun.
as opposed to a rifle.
Correct.
Thank you. And Exhibit 285.
Just kind of a zoomed out overshot view in front of 111, 112 of the same tint markers that we've been going through.
And on the far left, does it show an additional tint marker?
Item number 14.
Thank you. Exhibit 286.
It's item number 13, fired cartridge case.
And State's Exhibit 287.
It's a close-up view of item 13, a fired cartridge case from a rifle.
State's Exhibit 288.
Item number 14, fired cartridge case.
And Exhibit 289.
It's a zoomed-in shot of item 14, a fired cartridge case.
Moving next to Exhibit 290.
Again, just a zoomed-out overall photograph of that hallway in front of 111, 112, showing our tint markers.
291.
Item number 15, showing 3 fired cartridge casings.
So you may put one marker down for more than one casing.
Correct.
Exhibit 292.
Item number 16, identifying the 3 fired cartridge casings.
Okay. And we see 2 fairly easily. Where's the third?
This will be 1, 2, and the third's off right here on the left.
Thank you. Exhibit 293.
Item number 17, fired cartridge casing.
And 294.
Item number 18, again, a fired cartridge casing.
295.
Just an overshot view in front of 111, 112 of the tint markers and of the cartridge casings that we identified.
296.
Item number 19, fired cartridge casing.
297,
Item number 20, it's a fired cartridge casing.
298,
Item number 21, fired cartridge casing.
and do these all belong to a rifle?
That's correct, yes.
299,
Item number 22, identifying the 2 fired cartridge casings.
rifle casing.
Correct.
Moving now down the hallway, State's Exhibit 300, would you describe what we see here?
Be the, focusing on basically the tent markers that we set out to identify additional cartridge casings that we had located.
And once again, this is when you located it the day after this event, is that correct?
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 301,
Item number 23, fired rifle cartridge casing.
Exhibit 302,
Again, the same tent marker, number 23, just a closer up, zoomed-in photo of the fired cartridge casing.
Exhibit 303,
Item number 24, a fired cartridge casing from a rifle.
Exhibit 304,
Item number 25, cartridge casing, fired cartridge casing from a rifle.
Exhibit 305,
That's just a zoomed-in photo of item number 25 of that fired cartridge casing.
Exhibit 306,
Item number 26, and then, of course, you can see 27, 28 in the background, and then the medical intervention, signs of intervention there.
and 307.
A zoomed-in photo of item number 26, a fired rifle cartridge casing.
Exhibit 308,
Item number 27, 2 fired rifle cartridge cases.
Exhibit 309,
Item number 28, fired rifle cartridge casing.
and 310,
Showing item 29, 31, 32, and 33.
and are those further toward the south door?
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 311,
A zoomed-in photo of item 29, a fired rifle cartridge casing.
Exhibit 312,
Item number 30, a zoomed-in photograph of a fired rifle cartridge casing.
and Exhibit 313, does that show the general location of tent marker 32?
Yes, sir.
And Exhibit 314,
Item 31, showing the fired rifle cartridge casing.
Exhibit 315,
Item number 32, again, a fired rifle cartridge casing.
and Exhibit 33.
Item number 33, fired rifle cartridge casing.
And are you able to distinguish casing from one manufacturer from another manufacturer?
Yes.
And in this case, how many different types of rifle cartridge casings did you recover from the hallway?
We recovered an LC 22 5.56, and then there was a 9mm Luger Hornady, a Remington 223, and a Remington 223.
So how many Remington shell casings did you recover?
I believe, if I recall correctly, 2. 3. I'm seeing 3 right offhand here.
Okay. May I approach? That was a lot of cases that we went through,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
When y'all packaged up the casings, did you put them in different packages based on the brand of the casing?
We did.
May I approach?
yes, sir.
Showing you State's Exhibit 16.
Yes.
What does the LE at the top of State's Exhibit 16 stand for?
We're identifying these as being law enforcement related, belonging to law enforcement.
Your Honor, we have no objection to these exhibits to the.
We would offer Exhibit 16, Your Honor.
All right, it's admitted.
And without going into and opening each one of the casings, do you, as you enter those exhibits into the envelope, do you keep a record of what type of casings those are?
Yes, we give it, we write a description of what we collect on the envelope so we can refer to it later.
And how many cartridge casings, rifle cartridge casings were associated with law enforcement?
6.
And how many pistol cartridge casings were associated with law enforcement?
2.
And were they both fired, or was one fired and one unfired?
I'm going to believe, I think the one was unfired and then the rest were fired.
And we saw a photograph of one that was unfired.
That's correct.
Judge, it's the same with the next exhibit. We have no objection to this composition of statements, but
What's the number?
We just identified, Your Honor, State's Exhibit 17.
Okay. 17 will be admitted, no objection, go ahead.
Would you tell us what State's Exhibit 17 contains?
This will be the envelope that we secured all the LC 2.20 fired cartridges that we just went through that we collected in the hallway.
And did you also collect cartridge casings or assist in them out at the ditch where the truck was?
I don't believe I did, no.
Very good. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
good morning, Ranger Snyder.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
I'm fine, sir.
So, we've not met before, right?
No, sir.
So, my name's Gary Hillier. I'm one of the 3 attorneys representing Adrian.
Yes, sir.
And you testified before?
Yes, sir, I have.
Probably a lot of times, right?
A few, yes, sir.
You understand that I've got some questions to ask you
Sure.
about your role in this investigation?
Yes, sir.
Specifically in your training and experience, right?
Yes, sir.
And sometimes I speak too fast. And so if I am talking too fast, you can say, Gary, hold on, talk a little bit slower, and I'll repeat the question.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So that I'm not trying to trick you or anything like that.
Yes, sir.
So, and I take over your permission to ask you questions, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool, thank you. So, you've been some sort of 32 years in law enforcement altogether?
Yes, sir.
And I believe that, ironically, you started in Snyder.
Snyder, Texas. Yes, sir.
It's not named after the family or anything like that?
No connection, sir.
No connection. But so you did 4 years as patrol officer.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So you went through an academy in originally back in '94, right?
Yes, the first academy was the Odessa College Academy, yes, sir.
So you went to like a community college that does multiple agencies training, is that right?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Yeah, and I guess that's where you first encountered like police tactics,
Correct,
like use of force,
correct.
use of firearms for law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
And you've been carrying a firearm ever since.
Yes, sir, I have.
And and throughout your training, obviously, you've probably done, if you looked at your training record, you've probably done a lot of training in those years, right?
Yes, sir, I have.
And so you went to the DPS in '98,
That's correct, yes, sir.
and you were highway patrolman, so I think that's the correct title for a while.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And then you promoted out, is that correct? It was the correct terminology, you promoted to make ranger?
I promoted out from trooper status to auto theft investigator, and then that's our criminal law enforcement division then. And then after 5 years of being an auto theft investigator, I promoted into the Texas Rangers, correct.
Right, so it's after that you promoted to the Rangers, okay. And then once you made Ranger, I should say, you go to, as a matter of course, everyone goes to a 3-week crime scene investigation course.
That's correct, yes.
And that's where, I mean, that's what you're here to testify about today, your work in this crime scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during all those years, you do you call it in-service? Some police departments call it in-service or continuation training.
Yes, sir, we do.
Because you know, in order, you probably carry a weapon today, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
And you're carrying a sidearm?
That's correct, yes, sir.
A pistol.
Yes, sir.
Right? And you have to qualify to shoot that, is that correct?
We do, yes, sir.
Several times a year,
Yes, sir.
and you have to go for tactical training.
That's correct.
And in order to keep your status as a police officer, right?
Correct.
Primarily, and also to keep your status as a ranger.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, and so let's talk about, I want to talk to you about your role in this incident.
Yes, sir.
So you said you're based out of Wilson County,
I was at the time of this, yes.
and you're not now, I said.
No, sir, I'm in Atascosa County now.
Not a million miles away, but
It's a little bit, not much.
same district attorney, but different county, right?
That's correct.
So you made your way on May 24, 22 to the scene, I think you said late afternoon, early evening, 5:30 p.m.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And you had a briefing. Right.
Correct.
And was it Lieutenant Barina?
That's correct.
So we've already met, the jury's already met Lieutenant Barina, but Lieutenant Barina, he was there before you, he made the scene before you,
Yes,
and gave you a briefing on the situation.
that's correct.
So at that point, and I think I've seen some of the reports of this incident. I mean, it's discussed in several ways, but you're there to investigate or help to investigate what ended up being an officer-involved shooting.
Typically, but it was called in and given to us as an active shooter, yes, sir.
That's how it came in, right?
Correct.
That's where I was going. So in actual fact, what you were investigating was a mass murder of children, right?
Correct,
And the attempted murder of 2 police officers,
correct,
which ended in an officer-involved shooting, right?
correct.
Yeah, and so Ranger Barina gave you a briefing. I think you mentioned something about this is a huge scene, correct?
Yes,
And I think, Jeff, my approach to this
Yes, sir.
with the demonstrative, I think you mentioned that Ranger Barina gave you your briefing, and I just want to clarify on this demonstrative here, this map, what your not marching orders were, but what your briefing was to try and investigate. So I think that you said that you right. So you were briefed to start searching at the door, right? I think that's what you said.
yeah, we started, basically started where it was indicated where everything began, and then, of course, where the action took place, and then the after effects of that.
Yeah, and so thank you. What I'm trying to confirm the door. You said because you testified starting at the door. So So you recognise this location here? This is an overview. This is stage 1 of the school.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. Surrounded by Geraldine and Grove. So this is the school here, right?
Correct.
That's the school building there. So we've the way it's been discussed and labelled in trial so far is you've got the west door around here.
That's correct.
I'm indicating that on the map now. It's got a red X.
Correct.
Now that's the door you're talking about, right?
From the inside, from the interior only. Our focus on the first day there was basically, as I also mentioned, to identify and remove bodies from 111, 112. Then the following day, marking our evidence in the hallways were basically from the interior down the hall and then back down the hall in front of the classrooms.
Right, and thanks for that. But what I mean is, this is the door on the inside the building. You say we started at the door. That's where your work started at the door.
That's correct.
Okay. So, and we've identified that throughout the trial as the west door.
Okay.
And so this is the west to east there's 2 corridors inside that building, right?
Correct.
And we've seen lots of photographs, and we'll visit about some of them in a minute. But there's one, I know it's not perfect north-south orientation, but I think we're talking about one that goes west to east, east to west.
Correct.
And one corridor that goes north-south, south-north, right?
Correct.
Okay, but you started at this west entrance door here.
Correct.
And you know through your briefing, and obviously you know now, that door was unlocked.
It was said to have been, yes, sir.
It was, through your knowledge and your briefing, I mean, you weren't there at the time,
Correct.
obviously, right? But you know now that that door had been left unlocked, right?
Through knowledge is unlocked or propped open, ever how you want to refer to it, yes, sir.
So that's how that monster got into that school building, right?
Correct.
Yeah. If that door had been locked, that might have changed things, right?
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So that's where you started on your evidence collection, and you described your process. I want to talk mostly about the collection of the shells, which is your day 2 work. Right?
Correct, yes, sir.
Because that's the exhibits that have been. So if we can limit ourselves to that, that's what I'm trying to do. Right?
Yes, sir.
So your process is to, and I wrote it down, is you'll walk through and identify things,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
generally speaking, and you'll mark it.
Mark it with a tent marker, yes, sir.
And, I mean, because you're inside, it's called a tent, right? You put it over it or next to it so you can photograph it next.
Correct.
And then afterwards, you will then retrieve it.
Yes, sir.
And then that's the stuff that we've seen entering into evidence today, right?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So, and again, I think Mr. Turner might have asked you how many rounds that were found, but you know, it's a lot, right? A lot of ammunition, spent ammunition was found in those corridors.
Yes.
And you said that a lot of them are damaged, right? A lot of those shell cases were damaged.
Yes, sir. There was several noted, yes, sir.
Yeah, which, and like you said, that scene was, I believe you said, chaotic.
Yes, sir.
When you went there, it was chaotic, right?
There was a lot of movement going on, yes, sir.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is that there's no indication, there is a general indication of where those rounds were fired because you've seen some groupings on the ground, right?
Yes.
Your testimony was that there were so many people, and you're a man around, well, so many people moving through and through that rounds were getting kicked and casings were getting kicked and they could have been moved.
Yes, they could have been, yes.
So you can't testify to the jury where these shots were fired, right?
No, sir. I mean, we can presume by the groupings.
So there you go. But you can presume by the groupings.
Correct.
And what you mean by that, I would imagine, is if there's a grouping of spent cartridges in the hallway, which there were, right?
Yes, mainly in front of the doors.
Mainly in front of the doors of classroom 111 and 112, right?
Correct.
And so we'll look at the pictures in a second. But there's a grouping or two, I think there were 2 groupings, there's shells everywhere, right?
Yes.
Let's start with wider. There were shells everywhere. That's not an indication of where those rounds were fired, right?
Correct.
But there was a grouping outside those 2 doors.
Yes, sir.
And I think you said a second ago that that's an indication of that those rounds were fired outside of those classrooms, right?
Correct.
And were you aware that it's believed that the classroom 111 was left unlocked?
Yes.
But nevertheless, you've got a group of casings that were fired by the killer in that corridor.
Correct.
So in the absence of, so you know now that he didn't fire at anyone in the hallway, he was firing into the classroom, right?
Yes, sir.
So firing into something where you can't see inside, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because a police officer can't do that, can they? The police officer has to be able to see what they're shooting at.
Correct. You have to identify your target. Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you can't see your target, you can't shoot it.
Correct.
But that's not what this person was doing, right? The killer.
Correct.
Just firing indiscriminately into classrooms, through walls.
That's correct.
And a police officer's not allowed to do that. You can't do that.
No, sir.
And again, I think you said that you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ranger, you said that you believe the classroom door 111 was open, right? Unlocked.
Correct.
Obviously, had it been locked, I guess from your previous answer, that would make the outcome of this incident very different.
Correct.
Right? I want to draw your attention to a specific photograph. I'm going to find it and ask to have it. Rachel, I'm just going to get a photograph up and we'll discuss
Sure.
it, but we'll have to put it on the screen.
Yes, sir.
You bear with me a second. Judge, may I approach the television when it's displayed?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so you can't see the top of the picture. No, that's not one. Just my approach to see the screen.
Yes.
So, Ranger, we've published what's been marked as 272. You recognise that photograph has been entered already, right?
Yes, sir.
So, if you would, can you orient the jury to where we're looking here in this photograph, please?
This will be classrooms 111, 112. If I remember correctly, the entry door that he's talking about is going to be back this direction. If I'm
Do you mean the west entry door?
Correct.
Okay, so what we're looking at in the distance?
is the groupings of the shell fire cartridge casings, of which we identified and that we put the tent markers aside.
Right, okay, cool. So, but in the distance here, this is the south, this is another entry-exit door, right?
That's correct at the end.
And that's not the one that you were, that's not the one that you were briefed by Ranger Barina to start your search in. That was the west entry door, right?
That's correct, yes,
So
sir.
what we're looking at here now is, so if the west entry door is over here, towards that window somewhere maybe,
Correct,
right? Okay, and the east-west corridor is probably up here somewhere,
correct,
right? And now we're looking at the kind of generally north-south.
that's correct, yes, sir.
North-south to the south entry door,
Correct,
right? So, and this is a corridor,
correct,
obviously, I know we can see that, but it's also tactically, because you've done lots of tactical training, right?
yes, sir.
So you're aware of the concept of a fatal funnel.
Correct,
So a fatal funnel is anything that can be open. There's an open space where there's no cover, and it's difficult to tactically move, right?
Correct.
Such as a doorway. So if this doorway here, I'll draw your attention to this door behind me, this could potentially be a fatal funnel if I'm attempting to go through it.
Yes, sir.
So if you've got, I think the correct terminology would be, I mean, obviously it would be, in this case it would be mass murderer or killer behind that door, but a defender, if a defender was behind that door opposed to my entry and I go through that door, that is a fatal funnel.
I would agree.
Right, and you need, and it's an extremely dangerous situation for a law enforcement person entering, or military entering that fatal funnel.
Sure.
And you'd agree with me that a fatal funnel could be, it can be an open doorway, right?
Sure.
It could be a stairwell,
Yes, sir.
but it could also be a corridor, a hallway,
Yes, sir.
right? So anyone, so let's say hypothetically, right, someone enters this south door, and because we said there's a grouping, and we can see the grouping here, and I'm sorry to just display this again with the blood, I'm sorry, but we have to do it to demonstrate this point, right? That anyone entering this is entering a fatal funnel.
Yes, sir.
Because we've seen evidence here of rounds that have been fired in this hallway.
Correct.
So anyone who enters through that doorway is entering a potentially life or death situation for them personally.
Correct.
So they would be putting themselves in extreme danger.
Correct.
Yeah. And if they, and going on from that, if someone entered it, and so by extension, if someone enters that, they're putting themselves in danger, that fatal funnel.
Yes, sir.
And if they then, if shots were fired in that tunnel or that funnel while they were there, and they remain in that funnel, they're continuing and staying in extreme danger.
Correct.
And thank you, Ranger. I've got no further questions. I'll pass it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to start with this concept we just spoke about if you can't see what you're shooting at as a police officer, you don't shoot. Is that correct?
Correct. We are trained to identify our target.
Identify your target before you shoot.
Correct.
And so if you hear shooting on a school ground, but you can't see where the shooting's coming from, you don't shoot.
Correct.
So you just stand where you are.
Typically, I mean, through the information gathered, if we know where the shooter is, I mean, we have to identify our target before we shoot, yes.
And how do you identify where your target is?
You have to get to your target. You have to find where the shooting's coming from.
When you hear the shooting as a police officer, you have to find where the shooting's coming from.
Correct.
And is that something you can just take your time to do, or is it an immediate action?
You make a tactical approach to where the shootings occur.
And is that a direct requirement?
Yes.
And in an active shooting situation, is time of the essence?
Absolutely.
That is, the longer the time in an active shooting, the more victims you can have.
Correct.
So when an officer hears shooting but can't see shooting, what does the officer do?
Runs to the shooting, where we tactically approach to where the shooting's occurring.
And what does tactically approach mean?
You're finding your concealment, your cover.
Excuse me?
Your concealment, your cover. You're moving towards that sound where the shooting's occurring.
You move toward the sound where the shooting's occurring,
Correct.
and that information can come from the sound, correct?
Correct.
Or somebody telling you where the shooting's coming from.
That's correct.
And as you're approaching the shooting, you need not be reckless.
Correct.
You can use cover.
Correct.
That is, you can approach the sound of the shooting and still be protected from harm.
That's correct.
Showing you State's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize this building, the fourth grade wing that you worked in the hallway?
Yes, sir.
And is this building, was it made with bricks?
Yes, it was.
And are those brick walls protective to law enforcement?
Yes.
Would that be cover?
Yes.
So you could approach the corner and be completely covered or protected
Yes, sir.
if the shots are coming down this west side.
That's correct.
No danger.
Correct.
And this south doorway, did you get close enough to see if it was a metal door?
Yes, sir, I did.
Something you couldn't see through?
Correct.
And would that be called concealment?
Yes.
So as a police officer, if you opened the door and stood behind the door, there could be concealment.
That's correct.
You could be down, you could be standing stooped, you could be standing up.
Yes, sir.
Concealment and cover are assistance to law enforcement
Yes, sir.
when approaching an active shooter.
Yes, sir.
But you go in,
100%. Yes, sir.
but it's dangerous.
Yes, sir.
And you know that?
Yes, sir.
When you became a police officer, did you know you might be in dangerous situations?
Yes, sir.
When you issued a gun,
Yes, sir.
do you live with it every day?
Every day.
Do you live with the potential of coming home every day?
I'm going to get to
Every day. Yes, sir.
Sustain.
Can you tell the jury how much training you go through, if you do, to equip you to deal with danger?
debate.
Overruled.
Basically, through the in-house training that we do, we go through extensive training. Obviously, our department's made of different divisions, but as an individual, I train myself every day of putting myself in different situations, whether it be while I'm doing old case reports or typing case reports or while I'm driving down the road. I picture something happening and how I would react and what I would do during that time. Because you never know when you're going to drive up on something or when something's going to occur. You could be standing in line at a fast food restaurant or a convenience store getting something and something occur. How are you going to react and what are you going to do during that time?
And you're not unique as a police officer in doing that, are you?
No. I think we all do it.
Is a police officer ever off duty?
No, sir.
So you're constantly reminded.
I mean, even when I go out with my family and we eat at a restaurant, I put myself in a situation and we have that conversation amongst us as a family. If something happens, for them, for my wife and child, for what I want them to do, just leave me alone, let me take care of business, and they take off.
And so, as an officer on the job for 1 year or first day, that's when you begin thinking of those things.
Sure.
And 10 years into it, that would be 10 years of thinking about it,
Yes, sir.
and training,
Correct.
and preparing.
All right, sustain, go ahead.
The second thing, Exhibit 272, if you look behind you, that south door, what's the condition at that time?
Appears to be open, or it looks open.
Is that because of the bright light?
Yes, sir.
And then, this door,
It's closed.
and the amount of light coming through, is that different at that point?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And the last thing is, I just wanted to make sure there's no confusion. You started at the west door, because that was what you were briefed to do.
Correct.
Is that what we're looking at there?
Yes.
So the picture is on the east side looking west, even though you started on the west door.
Correct.
I
Yes, sir.
just didn't want there to be confusion. Pass the witness.
Thank you. So, Ranger, I've got a couple more questions for you now.
Yes, sir.
So, I just want to clarify, when you went, how long did you spend at this scene?
Total hours, I think I was 3 days there, and then we were relieved, we rotated out.
Yeah, and that's, I'm not asking you to say anything else, but you were at this scene a long time, right? And right?
Correct.
And you were, while you were there, you were never investigating Adrian Gonzales, were you?
Never saw him.
Never saw him, but he was never a focus of your investigation at the time?
Our focus was just the mass shooting, the officer-involved shooting, collecting the appropriate, the evidence located, yes, sir.
All right, and so the prosecutor asked you a question, that if you, because obviously you can't, it goes without saying that a police officer has to be able to see the target that they're going to shoot at if they are going to shoot, right?
Yes, we were responsible for that bullet to engage our target, yes.
Of course you are, because otherwise you end up possibly as a defendant for shooting someone unlawfully, right?
Correct.
Because you can't return fire to the sound of gunshots,
Correct.
presuming you know where the gunshots are coming from.
Correct.
Right, because you've trained with a long weapon, I'm sure, like a rifled style weapon, I think you call it the base, right?
Correct.
And you know through your training experience that if you fire that inside in a range, it will sound different than if you're firing it outside.
Of course, yes, sir.
Because the speed of the bullet coming out of the barrel, the muzzle velocity of that weapon is so fast, especially the weapon in this case, it's faster than the speed of sound, right?
Correct.
You don't need to be an expert to testify that, it is. So, it's loud and it echoes.
Yes, sir.
And if that sound will bounce off the buildings,
Yes. I mean, it travels, yes.
it will travel and it will bounce. So you don't know where it's, sometimes you fire a weapon outside, it can be difficult to identify where that's coming from.
But in this situation, not only we're identifying the sound, we're also gathering the information of our complainant, our victims, or our reporting parties of where that sound's coming from as well.
Exactly, and if those two are not consistent, you hear, and what someone is telling you doesn't match with what you're hearing, that creates even further problems for an officer to identify where this sound might be coming from, right?
It could, but I also want to listen to the information provided to me to follow that information and where it's coming from or where that person's hearing it from or seeing it from.
And let's talk about that. So hypothetically, and this is not a trick, right? Let's talk
Sure.
about that scenario. So, for example, hypothetically, if I were saying to you, Ranger, I've seen someone shooting over here, right? And at the same time, you're hearing something like the report of a long-barreled weapon. The report of a long-barreled weapon or a rifle is the sound of it going bang, basically, right?
Sure.
And you are hearing something that is not consistent with what I'm saying. That could cause some confusion in you to know where those shots are being fired from, right?
Possibly.
Possibly. So you're not just going to fire blindly to your weapon to the sound of gunshots.
No, I'm going to take the information given to me, analyze it, look, process it, and if I identify the target, then engage.
But if you can't identify, if all you've got to identify the target, if there is a target, is a sound, you can't just fire towards the sound, right?
Correct.
No, you can't. And so, so I'm talking about the prosecutor's first thing as he described it. So you can't just do that. So, and obviously and you said that the prosecutor asked you, if you're dealing with an incident like this, do you take your time or you immediately react? Remember that?
I'm sorry.
In an incident like this, because we know this was an active shooter, right?
Correct.
Mr. Turner asked you if an officer should just take their time leisurely or should they immediately react? Right? Remember that?
Yes, sir.
And of course you said time is of the essence. You must immediately react. Right?
Correct.
But you'd agree with me that if hypothetically I were to say to you, because we were outside here and you're not a police officer, right? And I'd say, I've just seen a man shooting his weapon, running at that school, right, and you saw someone running at that school and you chased them down, that would be taking immediate action, right?
Correct.
So if someone did that, they would be taking immediate action.
Correct.
Right, okay. And then we spoke about some tactical movement, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, the prosecutor spoke about tactical movement. Judge, may I approach you?
Yes, sir.
Because you went to the scene, well, you spent 3 days there, right?
Yes, sir.
Robb Elementary. And what exhibits are we at?
3.
So this first one's number 3?
Yes.
Judge, can I go through?
Yes,
So
please.
I'm going to show you, Ranger, what's been marked. So just marked as defence 3, 4, and 5. You recognise this, right?
They're all outside photographs of evidentiary items.
Yeah, they're a very accurate depiction of the scene as you saw it on those days.
Correct.
Judge, defence offers, and we'll show it to opposing counsel first, what's been marked as defence 3, 4, and 5 and 2 elements.
No objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
Judge, give it 1 second so we can display them on the screen. May we publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Judge. We'll just try and sort out something that electronically. So while my colleague does that, Ranger, I'm going to approach you with another
Yes, sir.
exhibit.
Yes, sir.
So we just mark these while we're trying to get them so we can publish them on the screen, right? So those were the pictures. 3, 4, and 5 are pictures of the scene. I'm going to show you what's been marked as 6. Do you recognise that?
It's the corner of the school building, and then, of course, the outside, the exterior of the school.
Yeah, and so you recognise it, and you've identified where it is. Judge, I'm going to show it to the state, but defence also offers defence 6 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, it'll be admitted. Any chance of getting them up on the screen?
I'm trying, Judge, I'm sorry, Ryan. What we'll do that, I may approach Ryan, we'll start, we'll do it the old way. So just for the jury, I am publishing what's been taken. So there's a series of photographs. Oh, they're up on the screen. Right, okay. So, Ranger, if I may put that there, if we just do it on the diagram first. May I follow?
Yes, sir.
So I guess you'd agree with me that what we're looking at here are photographs of the southwest corner of the building here.
That's correct. That looks like it's depicting this area
Yeah,
right in there.
The southwest corner of the building here, right. So that's what we're looking at generally. So we're looking, and obviously the jury's seen these photographs last week with other rangers who took the photographs. Because you didn't take these photographs, right?
I did not.
But the prosecutor wants to talk to you about tactical movement, so I want to talk to you about some tactical movement. Jason, if you could publish 4, please. Now, what I'll do is, in the meantime, I will display them to the jury. So that, like we've seen so far, there are photographs. There we go. There are photographs, and the method of your taking photographs and evidence collection is to take a further out, zoomed out view, right?
Correct.
And then you go closer again
Correct.
with more detail, and then further again to show more detail again.
Correct.
To illustrate things. So this is a diagram or photograph that is further away.
It's zoomed out photo, yes, sir.
And we're generally looking at the southwest corner of the building.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And you can see in the distance here, you can see a vehicle with the word police written on it,
Correct.
and another white vehicle parked behind it, quite a distance away, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we talked about, and again, I want to use the correct words, you say, tactically moving towards the south. So we already discussed the problems with hearing a shot fired outside from a high-powered weapon, right?
Correct.
It can echo.
Yes, sir.
Right? So now I want to talk about how one or an officer should approach that sort of sound, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think you said you should approach it tactically,
Sure.
right? Because you wouldn't just run blindly towards it, right?
No, sir.
Because that would cause more problems than solutions it would solve, right?
Correct.
Because a dead cop can't help anyone, right?
Correct.
Right. But so we're talking about moving tactically. So I think the prosecutor's suggestion is, so someone who was over here, let's say a police officer who got out of this vehicle here and was on the south side of the building,
Yes, sir.
right? So what we spoke about is, you're familiar with slicing the pie
Yes, sir.
or quartering a corner.
Yes, sir.
Like quartering would be more of a military phrase, right?
Yes, sir.
Slicing the pie or cutting the pie would be a civilian law enforcement term.
Correct.
Right, and then also the correct way, let's pretend someone was over here where I am. Right, somewhere in this west parking lot. Over here is the west parking lot, right?
Correct.
So if someone were to hear the report of gunfire over here, the correct way to approach it would be to take cover along this wall here. Right?
Potentially one way.
One way.
You just can't see what else is out here in this vacant lot as far as any other potential concealment or cover to make a wider approach.
And that's a good point. We're talking about a wider approach. For argument's sake, because you were there, right? At this scene?
I was at the scene, but I didn't have much part in this. Yes, sir. But I was there, yes, sir.
I'm not trying to get you.
No, I understand.
You remember this is mostly an open field, right?
Okay. Yes, sir.
And we see a little thin tree there.
Okay. Yes, sir.
That is a tree,
Yes, sir.
right? But it's not a substantial tree.
Correct.
That would be
But
possibly concealment.
potentially, yes, sir.
Potentially concealment, right, against a long barrel weapon, because we know what weapon we're talking about now.
Yes, sir.
High velocity,
Correct.
high power,
Correct.
could penetrate that tree easily, right?
Correct.
So that tree is not cover
Correct.
for a human body hiding behind it.
Correct.
From fire from the weapon we're going to see in this trial.
Correct.
Right. So there's no cover out here. Go with me on that. There's not.
Okay.
I represent to you. There's not. You were there. You tell me, Gary, there wasn't any. There was cover there if there was, right? There's
Correct.
not. Right. So the only cover you got is this building.
Okay.
Right. So can you see? And can you see what I'm indicating on the screen here?
It's a fenced-in area or protected area with their air conditioners.
So that's right. It's again, just guesstimate for me. How high do you think that fence is? Because you were there. Do you remember?
5 foot, 6 foot,
About that, right? And again,
4 foot.
From 4
4
to
to
6
6.
feet. 4 to 6 feet chain link fence.
Correct.
So in order to get to the corner of this building, so if someone were to, let's pretend for a second that this is the corner of the building, if I may move around the world, Judge. So let's pretend for a second this is the corner of the building, right, of that building there. Right, and I want to go to the corner of this building to take cover so that I can have a look around the other side into the west parking lot or slice the pie, right? Slicing the pie would be to come to the corner of this building. It's not an accurate, well, it's an accurate representation of it. A person would come up on the corner, right, and they'd just slice in the pie. It's like cutting slices off of a pie, right?
Correct.
That's why it's called slicing the pie.
Correct.
Like you take a little bit off the pie, a little bit more, a little bit more. So eventually you're clearing a little bit at a time. So you're coming here, and you can see what's going on ahead of you. And you'd be slicing the pie very slowly.
Correct.
Careful your muzzle. I'm not going to point at you guys. And as you're going further, you're cutting a slice off the pie. To go further and further and further, keep cutting the pie till eventually you could see down the other end of it. Right?
Correct.
That's what slicing the pie is. Military calls it quartering the corner,
Yes, sir.
because you're taking it off in quarters. But here, if we apply that to this wall, we've got a 4 to 6 foot fenced in chain link fence in the way. Right?
I mean, there is a fence there, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's there, right?
Yes.
Up here.
You just have to change your dynamics a little bit.
You do, yes, right. Well, we'll talk about that. But in order to get to the corner of this building, Jason, can you display the further one? I think it's 7. In order to get to the corner of that building, which that building's cover, right?
Correct.
To get to the corner of that building, you would have to climb into, because we talk about fatal funnels, right?
Correct.
That would be almost like, that would be a fatal funnel. If someone were to climb into this fenced off building, fenced off area with these AC units, to climb into that is a fatal funnel. Because there's no place to retreat or advance if you're caught in there, right?
Correct. We're focusing on the corner here. I understand the corner, but I'm also going to mention that there was also a vehicle in the parking lot which could have been used for some kind of concealment or cover as well.
I got it. We'll get to that. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
Right? I'm still coming down this building.
Okay.
Because we got to negotiate. Me and you got to negotiate this building first before we can expose ourselves to the open to vehicle. I agree with you on that, but we're not there yet, so we're going to rewind.
Sure.
I'm going to ask my question then again. My question was again, to get to the corner of this building, Mr. Turner's talking about cover, moving tactically in cover. To get to the corner of the building, you'd agree with me that you've got to climb into this caged off area, which looks taller there, 4 to 6 feet tall. Right.
To place yourself up against the building, yes. To still use the theory of slicing the pie, just widen it out and use the fence as your depth of widening and slicing your pie.
We'll talk about that, but I get it. You're right. But if you're going to just avail yourself of the cover, the hard cover, you've got to go into that cage. Right? You agree with that? Not going out wider, we'll talk about that next. To go to that corner, you've got to go into that cage.
I wouldn't say you had to go into the cage looking at how that pipe is inset from the corner of that building there.
I think it's 7. I'm not 7 of that. The last one, Jason. Yeah. The last one was wrong. I've got it, I'm sorry. Sorry, Ranger, it's marked as defence 6. I'm going to put it up on the screen so we can talk about it.
Yes, sir.
So we spoke about the drain pipe, right? So you'd agree with me that this is a different angle. So now this is looking at the building. This is south, looking up to the west, right? It's that one. 6, sorry.
And these are the same corner?
Yeah. Different angle. Well, let's look at it on the screen.
Sure.
So we can.
I just find it to be different, but okay.
Yeah, it is. It's taken later, but it's the same corner, right? Remember we looked at it earlier.
Okay.
It's been offered. It's entered into evidence.
Yes, sir.
So you'd agree with what we're looking at here is it's taken later because you can see the grass has changed, but this is that very same corner west. This is the west side of the building, and this is the south side of the building.
Yes, sir.
Right, and this is that fence.
Okay.
And you'd agree with me that fence is because you said, oh, there's the pipe. That fence is. I'm not even going to ask you to estimate how far away that is from the corner of the building.
Okay. Yes, sir.
But you can't. To get to this slither of brick here, you would have to expose yourself greatly to run back inside to get cover, right?
I wouldn't put myself inside the fenced area, but, yes, sir.
Why wouldn't you put yourself inside the fenced area?
Because then I limit myself.
Because you limit yourself. And you limit yourself because if someone were to come around that corner armed with a weapon, bent on your destruction, you would have nowhere to go, right?
Correct.
You would be in a fatal cage, let alone a fatal funnel, right?
Correct.
You would be very vulnerable.
Correct.
And in this case, probably dead, right? Injured.
Could be.
Could be.
Wounded, injured, yes.
Yeah, and of course, you do a very dangerous job, right? Sometimes.
I mean, our job is dangerous, correct. Any job today is dangerous.
Yeah, probably, right. But what, specifically, being law enforcement is a dangerous job.
Sure.
But if when you're acting as a police officer, you can't help anyone if you're dead.
That's correct.
Right, and so that's why we use, prosecutor talks to you about tactical movement. Officers are trained to move tactically, right?
Correct.
And it's not just so that they can help someone else, right? That's the eventual goal, is to be able to go and help resolve this situation. But it's also to try and keep them alive long enough so that they can resolve the situation.
That's correct.
So let's go back, if we can go back, Jason, to the last one, please. So we confirm this is the corner.
Correct.
Because, and I appreciate your candor, Ranger, you wouldn't have put yourself in that cage.
No, sir.
No. Because I want to talk about how, then, somebody should negotiate that corner. Because I agree with you. There are, so here we are. So what we were looking at there is this corner, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, and the fence, but that was sometimes later.
Yes, sir.
And we know, because there's a wider out photograph, and there's a black SUV. There's been a lot of talk about the black SUV that's in the parking lot, right? That would be potential cover at some point, right?
Correct.
But the problem with that is that you'd have to negotiate an open space to get to it.
That's correct.
No cover, right?
Correct.
And in order to, the whole point of this is the prosecutor asked you about moving tactically. We mentioned that. So to move tactically to this corner here, to be able to, let's place myself on this corner, so that I can, if this is the corner here, and I'm sorry to give you my back, if this is the corner of that building, in order to be able to slice a pie or quarter it, to look what's going on over there, I can't come to the edge of the building, can I?
No, obviously I have to work with the obstacle that's there.
So, and that's what, in this case, right? So, in a purely theoretical or training scenario, wouldn't it be nice just to be able to go down that building?
Sure it would. You always have to prepare yourself and be able to work around obstacles that you come up against.
But in this case, anyone who is trying to get cover from this building would have to negotiate this fenced-off area that you said you wouldn't enter.
That's correct.
So in order to come to the edge of that building, an officer would have to, let's say that the edge of that building is a TV. How wide do you think this caged off area is?
12 feet maybe?
12 feet.
15?
We'll go with it, 12, 15 feet. The officer would have to come 12, 15 feet, let's say, off of that building, right? And you'd agree that would be out of cover, based on the angles. You're widening up that angle of exposure to an area you can't see.
I would take that as wide as I need to be safe for myself to identify my target, of which has been pointed out or has been said is over there.
So let's use my hypothetical earlier. This is the corner of that building, right? But we've got this huge obstruction that's 10, 15 feet wide, right? And it's a big cage that you went into, right?
Correct.
Ideally, you would want to be behind cover, right? Because cover isn't hiding, it's safety, right?
Correct.
Fire, because there's a rifle being fired somewhere that we don't know where. In order to find it, you'd have to go and look.
Correct.
Right, if you could identify where it's from. But you can't, in my hypothetical here, just come to the corner of the building and have a look, because we've got that cage, which is a fatal funnel on the corner there.
Not only you have the cage, I mean, you got other obstacles in the parking lot, as we've seen in the previous photos as well.
I agree. So in order
But
to...
you have a whole open area outside of that to be able to work with, to be able to still use that building and conceal yourself.
With no cover in that parking lot, I got it. But in order to go to that corner, an officer would have to come 10 to 15 metres out, 10 to 15 yards out, which is about 10, is this about 15 yards, I reckon?
10 or 15 or further.
Or further. So to go, if that's my corner there that I've got to try and negotiate now and quarter or slice the pie, you see I'm further away from that building.
Absolutely.
So I'm already, to try and come to the edge of that building there, I'm hugely exposed from my left-hand side, right?
You can still use that building at your advantage even further out.
But the angles are so much wider, right? Ideally, this is what
Absolutely.
you want. The prosecutor's question was framed that go to the corner of this building here and then start slicing the pie or looking. That is not a possibility on the south side of that building, right?
Not going up next to the building, but to use what is available to you, yes.
I got it. But that, coming to this corner, I'll ask you again. Coming to this corner, tight to this building, in cover, not concealment. Cover, hard cover, is not possible.
Didn't ask an answer, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer if you understand the question. Ranger?
I mean, obviously you can't go up to the corner of the building because of the obstacle.
Thank you.
That's where you have to use the remaining room that you have,
You have to use a remaining.
the opening field.
Got it. And so that's right. So basically, to do that, you'd be in an open field, right?
Putting yourself in a position of which you could possibly potentially still identify a target.
Maybe, but in order to do that, you're still hugely exposed in order to do that on this side of the building.
Exposed to a degree.
Exposed.
Exposed to a degree, I mean, yes.
And then, and so I think that we discussed that, that part, and then I think the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the prosecutor said, would you go in? And you said absolutely.
Sure,
No, we're assuming there that the person is in the building, right?
correct.
And you're aware that Adrian went in?
No, I'm not aware.
You're not aware? Are you aware that Adrian did enter that fatal funnel?
I'm not aware of that.
Were you aware that Adrian was in that funnel when there were shots fired from a hidden location into the corridor that shot one of his colleagues in the head?
I was not
You
aware of
weren't
that.
aware of that. And were you aware that after one of his colleagues, Adrian's colleagues, had been shot in the head from a person that was out of sight, so they couldn't be seen because you can't shoot what you can't see, right?
Correct.
After his colleague had been shot in the head, he remained in that fatal funnel.
I was not aware of
You
that.
weren't aware of that.
No, sir.
Thank you, Ranger.
Yes, sir.
Possible,
Just as to that last part, the fatal funnel in the hallway, I believe the way that they described it was that the gunman is inside the classroom and the officers are trying to enter the door into the classroom.
That is a mischaracterization.
Okay, once again, ladies and gentlemen, what the lawyers say in their questions is not to be construed as evidence. If the evidence differs based upon your recollection, then rely on your own recollection. Please.
Thank
proceed.
you, Your Honor. Does the fatal funnel work both ways? That is, for the police officer, depending on where he is, as well as the gunman, depending on where he is?
You object to leading?
Overruled. You can answer if you understand the question.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So if a police officer is armed in the hallway, knows where the gunman's going to exit, if the gunman exits at that spot, would he be in the fatal funnel?
Object to leading?
Correct.
Overruled.
You say
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Part of it is who is in the position of knowing where the other person's coming from.
That's correct.
That's the witness.
No further questions, Judge. Pass witness.
Recall, either side.
Not by the state, Your Honor.
Not the sir.
Okay, Ranger, you are excused from the subpoena. You're released, but the rule was invoked, so please don't discuss the case until you're aware the trial's over.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.